Hi, everyone. One of my most important values is justice. And when I'm doing professional development or I'm presenting at a conference or something where I'm talking about what I'm bringing to the table, the ideas that I've had, I know many people have said, no idea is new, right? Like we don't just come out of ideas or come up with ideas from thin air, right? They come from somewhere and they come from a term like, and you can term it whatever you want. I think I've heard this before. Again, it's coming from somewhere, intellectual ancestors. And I want to just acknowledge all of the intellectual ancestors. Obviously, there are very, very many, so many that I'm not going to go over them all today, but I want to acknowledge the folks that I have borrowed and built upon so many of the concepts that they've talked about in my work. And I just want to honor that. And then I also want to walk you through how you might do this with your staff or just as a leader yourself when you go present, when you do a PD, just even as like a demonstration of I do this. And so it's out there in the world and people are seeing this and they can kind of pick it up and do it if they want. I also think this would be a pretty cool activity for students if teachers wanted to kind of go through and do that with them. So it could also be something that you teach teachers to do with students if you want. Or as I always say, have them practice as a staff and then bring that to the classroom if they'd like. Here we go. Let's take a look. It's my intellectual ancestors template that I've created and the tree that I've created. So I basically just took an Unsplash image, titled it my intellectual ancestors. And then what I did was I thought about what are the categories that are big foundational pieces of my work and who do I most draw from? Like who is it most similar to? Who was maybe a foundational person that like helped me onto this path or showed me what was possible? And then I made sure to look up whether that was specifically if it was a person, if they had particular credentials that I didn't want to overlook. I also, if you see like some of them, like Hassan McAvoy, Prescott, and Brookfield, I don't list them out as individuals because I've never met them and interacted with them, but they are people whose work I have cited and texts that I have read, theories that I have read and applied regularly. It is true for people like Bell Hooks I've never met in person, but I still wanted to honor her contributions because it was more than one text of hers, for example, that I learned from. So these are all of the folks that are really important to me, and these are the categories that really are what I have drawn from. So a lot of my work is due to Dr. Golden Muhammad. Janice Bloom was my coach and curriculum coach when I was a teacher and helped me think about this concept of a unit arc, which she, I think, drew from her work with other teachers who would kind of come up with theirs. And so I don't even know their names, but they have influenced me as well. Curriculum that I've worked on or I have helped people implement, like EL Education, Engage New York work, has been influential in my construction and co-construction and co-creation with departments of their curriculum. Mastery Learning has helped me in terms of embedding conversations around grading and backwards planning from a mastery-based rubric. Class discussion, I was trained in community circles and restorative conferencing from Morningside Center, but they get their practices from Indigenous communities, a multitude of Indigenous communities who have used this practice. So I just want to honor that. Io Magwood, who has helped me learn about, for example, Hassan McAvoy, which is right underneath here, has talked to me about many of the research that she has done, but also the application and practice in her history classroom of how we actually talk about things and how we distinguish empirical facts, which we don't debate, and policy issues, which we can debate. Prescott and Brookfield for all their points around discussion, change leadership, my professor John Morgan in my Antioch program, Heifetz Gresham and Lindsay, who are adaptive leadership scholars, so I'm always quoting, Mitchell and Sackney, who talk about kind of the various kind of three levels or layers of capacity building. Dana Mitra, Mark Brasoff, he has been, he was one of my chairs. Dana Mitra being someone, as I say constantly, Michael Fielding, whose definition of student voice is central to mine, and Westheimer and Kane, who talk about justice-oriented citizens, which I love as a conception of who students can be. And then foundationally, so you can choose whoever you, like whatever kind of big thing you want here. I like this as kind of the foundation, and these things are kind of aspects, but the whole, who I want students to, or how I want students to experience classroom, who I want them to feel like they are, who I want to be as a teacher, like that's all here. So Dr. Cherie Bridges-Patrick has consistently, in my adult life, been one of the most consistent thought partners and people who has pushed me to do better. Dr. Simona Sharoni was my undergraduate chair of the Women's Studies department and early mentor, helping me shape and rethink what it means to have a great classroom experience and what to be as a teacher. When we were pushing into elementary students' classrooms in college, Bell Hooks constantly pushed my thinking around like what is a culture of belonging and what does it mean to teach in an intersectional feminist way. Networks like International's Network for Public Schools and the New York Performance Standards Consortium have been critical in my development when I got to be a teacher in their schools. And then Kaluk Kime, who is just a joy, who is an absolute joy of a human being, I shared a classroom with for many years, and she has pushed me as well. I have made on the second slide here a template for you, so feel free to grab this, name the categories, fill one out for yourself, throw this slide at the beginning of a presentation or a PD that you deliver, and share it with anyone who you think would find it interesting. Thanks so much for listening to my intellectual ancestors tree. If you create one using this template or otherwise, I would love to see it. Send it my way.